Reducing wordiness. These exercises come from Owl Purdue, and I will post a link in your resources so that you can find more exercises and more resources at Owl Purdue. They are great for this kind of stuff. During that time period, many car buyers preferred cars that were blue in color and shiny in appearance. Well, that does sound wordy, so let's see what we can do with it. During that time period, sometimes it can be good to have an introductory phrase that helps locate us in a place or time, if that's necessary, but we don't want it to be longer than it has to be. So period isn't necessary. Many is an intensifier. So when I come across an intensifier in my writing, I always read the sentence with and without the intensifier. And most of the time, you don't need the intensifier. Most of the time, it just clutters up the sentence. Now, we find out later in this sentence that we're talking about car buyers, so we don't need to say it twice. And then blue in color. Well, if we know it's blue, that's a color. And shiny in appearance, well, we know it appears shiny. So we can reduce both those phrases. And here's what we're left with. During that time, buyers preferred cars that were blue and shiny. Let's look at another one. It goes without saying that we are acquainted with your policy on filing tax returns, and we have every intention of complying with the regulations that you have mentioned. It does sound like a mouthful, so let's see if we can get rid of some of these words. It goes without saying is just fluff. It's telling you that it's not really saying anything. So we can start at we. So we are acquainted with your policy on filing tax returns. And we, when you see something like have every intention, it might not be necessary. And in this case, it isn't. So we can just say, we will comply with the regulations. And that you mentioned, sometimes we use it as a bridge, that kind of a clause, but here it's absolutely not necessary. So here's what we're left with. We are acquainted with your policy on filing tax returns, and we will comply with your regulations. So you can see that I did do a little bit of wordsmithing here. Instead of the regulations, I changed it to your regulations. And the reason I did that was in the first instant, it says with your policy on filing tax returns. And we have every intention of complying with the regulations that you mentioned. So when it says that you mentioned, that suggests that they're your regulations. So it just made more sense to change the to your. I think either would be fine though. The key to editing down these sentences is you never want to take anything out that adds meaning. So take everything else out that isn't necessary, but sometimes a single word taking a single word out can change the meaning of the sentence. And this might be in a very nuanced way. So you do need to be careful about this. And sometimes you will need to do a little bit of fixing after you're done. Here we go. Imagine a mental picture of someone engaged in the intellectual activity of trying to learn what the rules are for how to play the game of chess. That does sound redundant, doesn't it? So let's just look at what we might do with this. Well, if we're imagining, it is going to be a mental picture. Engaged in the intellectual activity of. Well, we're already saying that they're trying to learn this game. So engaged in, trying to learn. I don't think we need both of those expressions. So I'm going to keep the one that's more descriptive of the activity, which is learning, trying to learn. And then because we know chess is a game, we don't need to keep game in there. And because we know that chess is an intellectual activity, we don't need that either. So let's just see what we're left with. This is much better. Imagine someone trying to learn how to play chess. Same thing, way more clear and concise. Let's look at one more. Megan says that never before in the past has she been so much of the opinion that a car air conditioner is an absolute necessity. That was even hard to read. Let's see what we can do with it. Megan says that, never before in the past has she been so much of the opinion that. Okay. You know, it comes down to, she says, we don't need all that stuff in the middle. Or we could, I suppose we could change a few words in here if we wanted. We could change says to believes. Maybe we don't even need the word that. I'm kind of thinking maybe we don't. And we don't need absolute. That is such an unnecessary intensifier. Megan says that a car air conditioner is a necessity. That is so much better. One more. My writing has helped me recall past memories and deal with the many terrible tragedies in my life. That's a lot of words that don't say very much. Let's look at what we can do with that. Well, memories are in the past. So we can keep either past or memories, but we don't need both of them. If we choose to keep past, we do need to add in the article the. Tragedies are by definition terrible. So we don't need to say that they're terrible. And I think the rest of the sentence implies that this is in this narrator's voice or in this narrator's life. So we don't need to say of my life. So here's what we have left. My writing has helped me recall the past and deal with many tragedies. Now, keep in mind with all of these exercises, there are many possible answers. The key is to write clearly and concisely so that your audience, your reader, can quickly grasp the meaning of the sentence. You're not adding anything extra that's wordy to the sentences.